Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm your host, Diane Floyd Bay, and our show today is the Corner Bookstore. If you're joining us for the very first time, wherever you are in the world, we are thrilled to have you. And thank you to all our dedicated viewers. Dr. Jacqueline, founder and CEO of USA Global TV and Radio, is producing the show today. Our guest today is businesswoman, a trailblazer, and author, Dr. Jann E. Freed. She's the author of 5 books, and her most recent book is Leading with Wisdom. Isn't that an awesome title? I can't wait to hear more about it. Leading with Wisdom. Please welcome author Dr. Jann E. Freed.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here, Diane.
Well, I'm excited. I was on your website reading all about breadcrumbs and legacies, and I'm so into legacies. I am doing a lot of ancestry. I always have, because my mama says my great-grandmother whispered in my ear, and so I've been like the historical person, looking everybody up ever since. Plus, wanting my own children who are adults like yours, which I was impressed how you said self-sufficient your kiddos are, which is a great achievement, as you know, and wanting them to make sure they understand the importance of legacy. So I'm excited to hear everything that you have to do.
Well, wonderful, because I'm excited to be here to share what I've learned.
Great. Well, how would you like to start, with breadcrumbs or leading with your new book?
Yeah. Well, let's start with so we'll start with one book, and I'll tell you how it leads to the other. Okay.
Oh, great.
So my background, I spent 30 years teaching business management and leadership at a small liberal arts college in Iowa, and loved my job. And I, part of higher education, you do research. So I started a research project in probably 2004, and where I interviewed more than 100 what I call thought leaders in the field of leadership, some of the real biggies. I was able to interview Warren Bennett, Jim Collins, Sally Helgeson, Marshall Goldsmith, some of the biggies. And out of those interviews, then I analyzed the data for themes. And each theme then became a chapter in the book. And the book, again, as you said, is Leading with Wisdom, Sage Advice from 100 Experts. And I actually interviewed more than 100, but my publisher liked 100. And one of the chapters that really resonated the most with people when I would do keynotes or workshops is the chapter called Leaders Live Their Legacy. So then I started doing some, kind of a deep dive into legacy work, and started that probably about 2018, I guess. And then, again, interviewed more thought leaders. And in 2023, just this year, my latest book is called Breadcrumb Legacy: How Great Leaders Live a Life Worth Remembering. So the books are related, but Breadcrumb Legacy is kind of just an expansion on this whole idea of leaders live their legacy. We all live our legacy, really. So that's kind of the background, and I'll let you take it there, Diane.
Oh, that sounds great. This is just so fascinating. And I love the title, Breadcrumbs. That's incredible. So You interviewed a lot of people. How exciting is that? I love meeting new people, and I can tell by you, you also do. It's amazing what we can learn and the tidbits they give us.
No, that's very true. And I always say that if I could have anyone's job in the whole world, I would want to have Terry Gross on National Public Radio, NPR. I just love the
Yes,
fact that, and she's very good, yeah.
she
But
is
I love
very
that
good.
she gets to interview all these people about interesting topics. And so I came up with the term breadcrumb legacy from actually my work. I would be doing workshops, I'd be doing speaking, and people, I'd ask people, when do we leave our legacy? And people would say, well, when we leave. And I'd say, okay, that's true. When we leave what? Well, when we leave the earth, when we die, when we leave a job, when we retire. I'd say, yes, that's very true. What happens when I leave this interview right now? What happens when I leave this workshop? And out of that, I realized that we're leaving our legacy all the time in bite-sized pieces. And so we're leaving breadcrumbs all the time. I'm leaving some with you now, Diane. I'm leaving some with your listeners. When this is posted, we're sprinkling our breadcrumbs, and they can be positive, they can be negative. And so I often say that when we're very aware of the breadcrumbs we're leaving, they can serve kind of as your true north, your moral compass. They can keep you on the right path because legacy does not necessarily mean it's positive. If we're not very mindful, we could be leaving negative. We could be leaving a negative legacy.
You're absolutely right. And it's very interesting that you said that because so I've traveled a lot and I've lived overseas in several countries. And I'm always amazed, so one country I lived in for 14 years. So I saw a lot of people coming and going. And I would remind them that when you visit someplace, whether it's in your home country or wherever, you are an ambassador for yourself as well as your hometown and your home country.
Mm-hmm.
And how you behave is a reflection not only of you, but the people you represent. And so what you were saying is really true. We leave breadcrumbs
Mm-hmm.
and lasting impressions, correct?
Lasting impressions, whether you call it. I was doing a workshop not too long ago about this topic, and I had a man ask me, he said, well, don't you think it's kind of self-centered to be thinking about your legacy all the time, to be thinking about, who you are? So I said, well, let's replace the word legacy with impact or influence or even imprint or impression, let's not use the word legacy. Do you think it's self-centered to be thinking about the impact you're leaving on a daily basis or the influence you're having on others on a daily basis? And when I worded it like that, then he said, oh gosh, no, now I see what you mean.
That's brilliant. Absolutely. And I hope our viewers are taking this in, that what you're doing right now is a lasting impression, impact, legacy, however makes you feel more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But Dr. Jann, I really, really appreciate you sharing this. We have viewers from all over the world watching. So you are leaving lots of breadcrumbs internationally at the moment. Just
well,
so
I love
you know.
that. And I'm honored to be here, Diane. Thank you.
You're welcome. So if you I meant to ask when we were backstage if you have a book, if you wanted to read a little bit from it, that would be grand, or just give us some tidbits from the book.
Yeah, I'll give you some more. So basically, the subtitle of my book is How Great Leaders Live a Life Worth Remembering. But the book is not really for leaders, or we're all leaders. I mean, my definition of a leader is someone who's in the position to influence the lives of others. So my definition includes parents, teachers, coaches, pastors, anyone who's in a position to influence the lives of others. And so given that definition, we're all a leader in some aspect or another. So the book could really be, the subtitle really could be How to Live a Life Worth Remembering. And so I'll just kind of give you a quick overview of some of the chapters. So I start off with a chapter on meaning and purpose, because people who really have a reason to get up in the morning tend to live, 7 years longer than people who just kind of drift, who just kind of go with life instead of, having a real focus or something that matters to them, and usually a meaning and purpose beyond themselves. So kind of serving the greater good. I have a chapter called Who Will Help You Move the Couch? Now, the chapter is all about relationships. And actually, there's a book first of all, there was a TED Talk that went viral by Robert Waldinger, and his TED Talk was called The Good Life. And it's based on Harvard's longitudinal study of, I think, about 80 years of on happiness. And he just has a book out now called The Good Life. And if he had to summarize the good life in one sentence, he would say it's people who have healthy relationships. So I have this whole chapter on relationships and why they're important and why they're particularly important as we get older, because people die, people leave, some relationships become unhealthy, and our circle of friends shrink. So I really talk about what we need to keep doing to cultivate and create new relationships. I have a chapter called Drop Your Tools. This is about learning, unlearning, relearning. It's just about, if we want to live a life worth remembering, we really do have to get out of our comfort zone and continue to grow, be relevant, be engaged. And so that's, and learning is a big part of that. And we may have to unlearn things. So that's a chapter. I have a chapter called Dr. Death. They call me Dr. Death. Now, I've been teaching, this chapter. I talked about death, dying, and grief in my Leading with Wisdom book, because that was a chapter, that was a theme that emerged when I would interview people. And, these experts would say, well, you need to be teaching people about death, dying, and grief. And I'm like, what? I don't get it. Well, that was about 2008, 2009, the financial crisis. Well, fast forward to COVID, and everything was just magnified. Companies are dying, industries are disappearing, not just jobs, but entire industries. And there's a lot of loss and grief. And then with COVID, there definitely was death was up front and center. And so, leaders need to learn not only our own coping mechanisms, but how to help others through this loss, death, grief. So that's another chapter. So that kind of gives you a flavor for the book. I mean, honestly, if you go to my Amazon site, I've got several reviews there, and I'm finding that people are buying it for all of their children, meaning adult children. But the younger someone understands all of this, the better off they are, because, I used to teach undergraduates, and one of the exercises I have is I have them write their own eulogy. Now, I was doing this before David Brooks wrote his book called The Second Mountain, where in there he talks about eulogy virtues and resume virtues. And resume virtues focus on what we've done, what we've accomplished, and eulogy virtues focus on who we are, our being, our character. And I was having 20 and 22-year-olds do this. I started this in probably 2010 or earlier, no, probably about 2008. And, initially they don't understand it, but I help them connect the dots, because I say, if that's how you want to be remembered, then you need to start living your life like that right now. And I actually, Diane, did a TEDx talk on this called Embracing Death. So if your listeners went to YouTube, they could find my TEDx talk called Embracing Death. Actually, I have another chapter in the book called Becoming a Nobody. And I actually did a virtual TEDx talk called Becoming a Nobody. And that's all about ego. We've got to control our ego and not let our ego control us. So that's kind of an overview of the book.
Oh my goodness, there is so much there. I needed
so
to be
much.
taking.
There's a lot here. There's a lot.
I'm going to start going backwards from,
Okay.
and then you help me through some of the chapters. So I'm going to start with, oh my gosh, I wish my mom from heaven could be listening to you right now. I hope she can. She was a trailblazer like you, and she started the very first hospice for the VA in America.
Wow.
So she studied hospice with the people who designed it in England.
Wow.
So and she also is a professor. And so she did like you. She had her students write their eulogy.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, it's like I'm talking to my mama.
Well, and I'm a hospice volunteer.
Oh my
So I
goodness. See, there you
volunteer for hospice. I go into homes or care centers to give
go.
caregivers a break.
Hmm.
So if you ever want to experience gratitude, and I say
Yeah.
that hospice training to be a volunteer, you don't even have to volunteer, but the training itself is very good personal development.
Absolutely. It absolutely is. And, you know, just being with my mom and she was very fortunate because hospice today isn't anything like it was originally
Mm.
designed to be. So at the VA hospital where she had her own home, and I could go in and sing to people that wanted song and comfort. And so she taught me an awful lot. So what you're saying is so, so important. And we never know when it's going to affect our life. So that
Exactly.
training,
And we never know when the end is.
yeah, oh, absolutely. It's true. So I'm a big believer in always being prepared for
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
and not leaving a lot of pain for my loved ones. But that is so incredible that you do that. I also caught that you were from Iowa. I
Yes.
just came back from Iowa
Where were you?
visiting friends. I was in, now you would say it, this teeny tiny town called Dow City.
Okay. North. It'd
It's
be north, I think.
kind of
Isn't
in the middle, and
okay.
it's a lot of corn, as you know,
Yes.
and it's the people are incredibly and they're beautiful, and we have friends that retired there, and because he grew up there,
Okay.
and so it is actually more west, and then close to
Oh,
Nebraska.
okay.
Okay, and then I was in Iowa City
Sure.
and seeing friends there that teach at the university.
Okay.
And then if you go on up north, um, I didn't go this time, but have been many times with my mother doing genealogy work in
Oh,
Mason City.
sure.
So
Great.
I know the cemeteries really well.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
And so, legacy that you're talking about is important, and there is a difference. And I'm so glad you can tell our viewers um, how important the difference is between your bio and your what you want to leave behind. Because
Right.
sometimes we could get so into our work that we forget. But I really think I'm this person, and I loved
Exactly.
what you said. Then you better start living it.
Yes. Yeah. You need to start living that way now if that's how you want to be remembered. And most of the time, when you go to a really meaningful funeral or a celebration of life, what really sticks with you are the stories, the personal stories, not what they accomplished, but really who they were and the people they had an impact on. And those are the things that you remember the most.
Isn't that the truth? That is the absolute, absolute truth. So, you said a lot of other things, and each one of your chapters were so interesting. Is there any chapter that resonates with you the most that you just closed the book and you just went, wow, that was really good. Thank you, angels.
Well, I think the chapter on death, dying, and grief, because most people, I'm just really attracted to that. But I think because of my hospice training and because of the grief work that I've done, I really do feel that it's made me a better friend for others going through complicated situations. I can be a better friend, I can be a better support because often people have good intentions, but they say the wrong thing, they do the wrong thing. And I have really studied this. I mean, for instance, I'll just give you some simple examples, but um, sometimes it's just like, instead of saying, well, let me know what I can do, usually you won't hear from anyone. But if you say, I want to bring over dinner, what's the best night? And then when you take over something, make sure you take it over um, in containers that do not need to be returned because you don't want to make more work for them. So, just being very mindful about you want to help, you want to lighten their pain, their suffering, and what can you do to make it easier? So again, there are all these kind of do's and don'ts that a lot of people don't study. And I think in the workplace, because of COVID again, there's just a lot of loss. People are feeling, loneliness was an epidemic before the pandemic. So I've done a lot of research again on relationships and how to create relationships. And I'm even working on something now, how to make friends after 50, because most of our friendships are front end loaded. We meet friends, we make friends through college, after college, through work, through our children, activities. Then we're empty nesters. We might retire or leave full time work. And then a lot of these relationships disappear unless we're very intentional about maintaining them. And actually, a lot of relationships 50 plus are not healthy. They can become unhealthy. Alcohol, abuse tends to go up as people age. It can. The grain of divorce, divorce rate is high enough, but it's even higher for people 50 plus. So there are a lot of negative statistics as we get older. And relationships really are really important to help support us, sustain us, enrich us, confide in. So I think, relationships and the whole idea of loss. We lose a lot of relationships. My husband's best friend just died, best friend from high school. So, things happen as we get older. And I think that relationship and loss, I think they kind of go hand in hand.
They absolutely do. And you brought up such an important point, because I think it's really important. And I didn't come up with this, but my mama and a good friend of mine did, I was being mentored from, is to make sure you have friends of all ages. Because
Yes.
if you have someone your age, then,
No,
they could-
intergenerational relationships, intergenerational learning, all of that is really important for positive aging.
Yeah. And now that you said positive aging, I noticed on your website that it sounds like you do a lot of speaking engagements on how to age gracefully. Would you like to speak about
Yeah,
that?
that is one of my passions. I'm a certified saging leader. Saging is SAGE-ING, and the organization is called Saging International. So again, if you went to the website, it'd be SAGE-ING.org. And a sage is, how can we grow whole? How can we grow whole instead of old? How can we sage instead of age? It's really a spiritual term because it's all about compassion and love and forgiveness and, really, living in a way without regret, living in a way without revenge, living in a very positive way. I'm also an alum of the Modern Elder Academy. It goes by MEA, started by Chip Conley, and your listeners could look at that too. All kinds of very wonderful workshops where, again, it's really, he calls it the Academy for Midlife Learning. And, we're living in uncharted territory because usually we're living longer, but it's not just the end of life, it's really midlife. Barbara Waxman, she's coined the term middle essence, that, from 55 to 85, we're getting a life extension. It's just not 30 years at the end of life. It's really in the middle. And this is uncharted territory. And how do we learn to navigate that? It's like, so Chip Conley, has written a couple books. Well, he's written several books, but a couple on wisdom, aging, saging. And, he talks about how there's no graduate degree unless you go into gerontology, in how to age gracefully, how to stay relevant. And so his academy, the Modern Elder Academy, provides workshops, both online and in person, of how to do this. And so I really am a student about how to grow older in a very positive way. And I like to help others with that too. And so I do have a monthly podcast myself called Becoming a Sage, where I interview people about life and work wisdom. I also have a monthly newsletter. And if your listeners just go to my website, which is Jann Fried with 2 N's, 2 E's, jannfried.com, they could subscribe and it would come right to their email, their inbox. And I will also point out, since you're showing my website, thank you, that at the top on my homepage, there's a 20% discount from the publisher for my latest book on breadcrumb legacy. So yes, you can order it from Amazon, but and Amazon's faster, but you could save 20% if you go to my website and click on that discount code. So
that's great to know. And since Dr. Jacqueline was so sweet to bring up your website, maybe we could go to the blog tour, because I found that very interesting as well. And you could speak about the different things you
or
spoke
the
of.
podcast, maybe
Yeah, the pod.
So,
yeah.
okay, so actually, the very first, or my latest podcast, the first one there, Christine Sperber is one of the co-founders of MEA. So she and another man named Jeff, and then Chip, the three of them founded MEA, and MEA is opening a second campus in Santa Fe. They bought an old monastery that they're refurbishing, renovating. And so they're going to have a campus in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and then they have this Baja. And then, as I said, they do online. If you want to go on down, I can show you some other of my podcast guests. Gina Cox, she's a real expert in diversity, equity, inclusion work. She has a new book out on that topic, which is really relevant for anyone in the business world, at this time. To keep on going down, we'll just show a few more.
Okay.
Bruce Rosenstein, he is the editor of the journal Leader to Leader, and he's really an expert on Peter Drucker, known as the father of modern management. So anyone who's in management, I'm sure, has heard of Peter Drucker. And so we have a very interesting conversation about Drucker and his wisdom. I mean, he was predicting, Peter Drucker was talking about knowledge workers before it was even a thing. So that's an interesting conversation. We'll just do a couple more. Jacqueline Wales, we talk about being fearless. Her expertise is helping women become more fearless, get out of your comfort zone, why that's important for positive aging, why it's important for today's workplace. And we'll do one more. This is real interesting. So Shauna is the daughter of Reb Zalman. Reb Shachter Shalomi, Reb Zalman, he is the founder of Saging International. He is really the grandfather of the movement, and she's his daughter. He's no longer living. But he wrote the book called From Aging to Saging, A Revolutionary Approach to Growing Older. And his book then became the foundation for the whole Saging International movement.
Wow.
And so that was fascinating. And I actually had a chance to meet Reb Zalman. He was a rabbi. I had a chance to meet him before he died, and that was really moving. Thank you.
I bet it was. That is just fascinating. So viewers, make sure you go to her website, sign up. I would assume they sign up to join your
right. If they subscribe, and it's on the bottom, I think it's, if you go to the homepage again, maybe. If you go to the homepage, there may be a pop-up. If you page on down at the bottom, does it say subscribe? Did you? Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, in the center there at the bottom, well, we can either go in the center or the bottom.
It was in the center.
My homepage, my 2 TEDx talks. I also have a free download. You can subscribe there, and you would get the top 5 actions for creating your own breadcrumb legacy. You'd get a booklet there if you want to subscribe. Or at the bottom of the page, they could subscribe too. And again, my newsletter, it's a monthly newsletter, easy to read. And then I just post a monthly podcast. And my podcasts are about, they're audio podcasts, and they're about 30 minutes long. So.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm so happy to talk to you. It's such an honor. Within all this, I must say to you that I'm such a believer that we need to not look at age by the number,
yes,
but how, because I know people that are younger than I, but they're like, I'm going to go, we're selling our house. We're going to move into a senior retirement home because, it has all these different stages of life. And I'm like, oh, excuse me, aren't you just 45? Yeah, but it has a golf, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're setting yourself up to be old, OLD, and that word is not allowed in my vocabulary.
Well, I'm with you because the thing is to me, it's about creativity, it's about curiosity, it's about staying engaged, staying relevant, meeting people of different, in different generations, and staying interested in life. And
Mhm.
like I said, I'm out to retire the word retirement. We're not retiring, but we're moving on. And what
Exactly.
is it we want to move on to? So we don't have to
Mhm.
work. I
Mm.
define work as contribution. So how do you want to contribute? And your contribution may be full time, part time, volunteer, paid, no paid, whatever. But how do you want to contribute to the world? And that goes along with your legacy again.
I absolutely love that. How do you contribute to the world? So, I was an educator. I'm contributing to the world, and that's my work. I don't have to say WORK because then you're going to think, okay, well, she gets off at 3 o'clock and she's not doing anything else. But that's not true, right? So, and also, for example, there's a woman from church that I befriended, and she's now in rehab. She's 89. And a while back, when I got to know her, I started reading some of her poems and her prose and so forth. And I said, "Oh my gosh, we have to get this stuff published. This is just incredible." It was like over 200 pieces of work, and she goes, "Oh no, we can't do that. I'm too old to do that." And I was like, no, 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 no. If you're going to be my friend, you can't say OLD. And so she's maybe
Right,
in
exactly.
the,
And part of your legacy then is helping her.
yeah, I don't know. Thank you. But you said earlier how important it is to wake up in the morning.
Yes.
And so at first, when she's like, oh my gosh, I broke a bone again, I'm like, okay, that's all right. Because guess what? We're going to focus every single day on healing, and we're going to work on your book, you and I. So I'm going to come be with you, and we're going to do this. And every single day, you have a reason to wake up. So I'm so glad you said that. So tell our viewers again why they need to wake up in the morning.
Well, it's really important. I'll just give a story that I was working with a coaching client, and he was a very prominent attorney and been diagnosed with a fairly terminal illness. And he wasn't going to get better, but he hadn't shown many symptoms yet. But his law firm basically felt like he just could not practice law right now and probably wouldn't again. So I'm meeting with him and I'm giving him all these options of how he might contribute. And he got kind of angry with me and he said, "You know what? I've worked hard enough. You're giving me all these, thing options of what to do." He said, I don't want to work anymore. And I said, no, no, no. I'm not talking about work. I'm talking about what's going to get you out of bed in the morning. Are you just going to lay there or what are you going to do? And he said, "Oh, well, when you put it like that, okay, that's a whole different way of looking at life." So, this whole idea of, um, what is it that you want to contribute to? What do you care about? What do you want to now? I would have said to him, what do you want to be part of your legacy? What do you want to leave behind? And let's start building that now. Even though he'd already built this successful law career, it's like, what do you want to do now? I mean, I think it's very cool that George W. Bush is now a painter and has published a
Yes.
book. And I actually like his style of painting. So it's kind of interesting. I don't always agree with his politics, but I like his style of painting. And, that creativity, curious. What are you curious about? What do you want to learn more about? Um, in fact, when I was interviewing that Bruce Rosenstein, he said Peter Drucker every year, and he lived to be 94, every year he would find something he wanted to learn or get better at every year. He
Mhm.
wanted to learn Japanese. He wanted to learn, so it's like, what do you want to learn? What do you want to learn more of? What do you want to get better at? So I hope your listeners think about that because that's another, if something excites you, you can't wait to get out of bed.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I um, I always say thank you for letting my eyes open and be alive every day and air in my lungs. At night, I give thanks. And in the morning, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to wake up again. Thank you, Lord. Now I need to,
Very nice.
yeah, yeah. And so, our viewers, think about if you're at a point in your life, you're like, I don't really know what to do, what makes me tick. Dr. Jann, what do you think about viewers thinking about what used to make them very excited and maybe go back to that? And
Absolutely. I often tell my clients, go back to when you were younger and what is it that you love to do, but you haven't maybe taken the time to do that anymore. And, explore, discover, try things. It doesn't have to work. You find out what you learn to do, what you don't like to do by just discovery. So I think that's a really good point.
absolutely, discovery. And also, if someone, like, for example, I had a teacher in sixth grade who embarrassed me in front of the whole class and
Oh,
said I was
no.
a artist, don't ever take art again, blah, blah, blah. And of course, she made me so shy, and I remember crying and so
Oh,
forth. So
no.
I never took art again. And then one day, when I was reinventing myself, Dr. Jann, I decided I was going to write children's books because I'm, as you can tell, a nonstop talker and to have lots of stories. And so I went, why did I let this woman hypnotize me? I am not going to allow that. And I started taking art classes, and my art teachers are like, why have you not been doing art? And I'm like,
Oh, that's a wonderful story. And so I hope you're doing that now. Yes.
yeah, absolutely. And again, for the viewers, and to share that with you, it coincides with what you're saying is what made you happy? Well,
Mhm.
I remember coloring with my mama when I was little, and I have such sweet memories, right? And
That's
that led
wonderful.
me into water painting and all that stuff until this sixth grade thing happened. And then I was like, never touched it again. But it's so exciting because I am doing it. And
Yeah.
so, viewers, go for it, right?
Go for it. Go for it. Get out of your comfort zone. Try it. If it's not for you, you don't have to stay with it. But
Yep,
try different things. Yes.
that's right. So I know we're going to have to go, but I think I could talk to you all day about every single chapter. I hope you will come back. I love Breadcrumbs Legacy. It's just so powerful. And in closing, remind people how they can get that discount at your website again.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Well, first of all, I'm honored to be here and I do hope I get invited back. I would love it. I have more information I could share. But if your viewers go to my website, which is jannfreed.com, 2 N's and 2 E's, on the homepage, there's a discount code from the publisher, 20% discount. It'll take a little longer than Amazon, but it's less expensive. And to order my book. And if they are on my website, they could also subscribe. If they submit their email, they would get a monthly newsletter that's easy to read and a monthly podcast where I interview people about wisdom, both work and life wisdom. So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm active on LinkedIn. I'm getting active on Instagram. I do a little bit of Twitter. I do have a Facebook. I have a Facebook private group called Becoming a Sage, where I only post and the members in it, we only post information about positive aging, saging, growing whole, that kind of information. So if people are interested in that, it's a private Facebook group. All they have to do is, request to join, and, I'll let them in. And then that is really targeted information about positive aging. So thank you very much.
You're so welcome. Again, I could talk to you all day long because you
And
already
same is
said
true
more
here, Diane.
things.
We're just going to have another meeting, okay? Meeting of the minds.
A meeting of the minds. And yes, we do want you to come back. So make sure you go back and go to the website and look at all the other shows. And I can tell you more about it in the green room after the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. I'm honored.
Thank you. Well, everyone, that concludes our show today. Wasn't Dr. Jann amazing? As you heard me say, I could speak with her all day. There were so many topics that I'm very passionate about. Her books are the names of them alone are grab you. So please go to her website, Jann, Janne. Oh no, I'm sorry, she didn't do the D. Jann Friedman, JannFreed.com. and be sure to sign up for her newsletters. I hope the rest of your day or evening, wherever you are in the world. Again, thank you for watching and or listening, and have a very blessed day. Bye for now. Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to Story Garden. Your host, Diane Boehm. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Diane Floyd Boehm tells wonderful stories that warm the heart, spark the imagination, and unite people and families across generations. For children, Diane's Harry the Camel connects with all of us who've ever wondered how different our lives might have been if only we'd been born something better, like a wonderful horse instead of an ordinary camel. In the end, we all learn along with Harry that there's nothing better than just being yourself. Diane's Little Girl in the Moon looks down on earthbound children and wonders if they know she's just like them. A story of love, home, and the bond between mother and daughter, its powerful theme that we're each of us different yet all of us the same plants a seed in children that promises to blossom within a loving and trusting grown-up. Diane's new biography, Rise, recounts the experiences of her grandmother, Ruby, to reveal the hidden strength of the human spirit. Ruby's story inspires all of us to become the best versions of ourselves. You'll find all of Diane's delightful books and much more at DianeFloydBoehm.com. Visit DianeFloydBoehm.com. That's DianeFloydBoehm.com.